I'm an idiot.
It's showtime!
Welcome to Film Club. Shazam! Fury of the Gods is out in cinemas now. Full spoilers ahead, so if you want to go into the movie blind, then perhaps come back to this video later. I really enjoyed Shazam! Fury of the Gods. However, I couldn't help but notice that the critics seem to dislike this movie, with it standing at 53% on a Rotten Tomatoes tomato meter. Now I have some views which I'm going to share after the main review as to why the critics are split over Fury of the Gods. There are time codes in the description, so feel free to skip to my thoughts on how the critics are wrong at the end of the video. With that being said, onto the review. Plot. We are introduced to the antagonists of the film, the Daughters of Atlas, Hespera, played by Helen Mirren, and Kalypso, played by Lucy Liu. They fix the magical staff that Shazam broke in the original film, and the magical powers return. Shortly after this, Freddy meets a girl named Anne, who turns out to be Anthea, the youngest and more compassionate of the Daughters of Atlas. Hespera and Kalypso force a wizard who returns from the original Shazam to fix the staff, and they capture Freddy, who was on a date of sorts with Anthea at the time. They then use the staff to remove Freddy's powers and put a magical dome around Philadelphia. Billy Batson and co fight Hespera, and after allowing herself to be captured, she retrieves a golden apple from their lair, the Rock of Eternity. Kalypso, the more tyrannical of the sisters, betrays Hespera, having the dragon Laden impale her in the chest, and Kalypso plants the apple in Philadelphia. The apple springs into the Tree of Life, which should have been planted on the sisters' realm, as it would have brought life and beauty there. But when planted into the earth's soil, the tree becomes corrupted, and mythological monsters such as Cyclopses, Minotaurs and Harpies are released onto the city. The Shazam family are then hunted down by Kalypso, and they all lose their powers except Billy Batson. Billy makes a deal with the dying Hespera, and Hespera shrinks a magical dome surrounding the city. The end fight between Kalypso, her dragon Laden, and Billy follows. Billy uses the staff to destroy Laden, Kalypso, the Tree of Life, and sacrifices himself in the process. The family, the wizard and Anthea bury Billy in the sisters' realm, and then Wonder Woman appears and uses the staff to bring Billy back to life. A fun fantasy story that sometimes falls on the exposition heavy side. Plot scores 7 out of 10. Entertainment value. I thoroughly enjoyed the film and found it really funny. Now, the original Shazam I often found to be too cheesy or cringy, but the humour in Fury of the Gods works for me. Most of the audience in the cinema with me were laughing a lot too. The fantasy element with the sisters' power, their dragon, and the Greek mythological monsters were all really fun. The adult versions of the Shazamily played a much greater role in Fury of the Gods, and I would say that's for the better, as the adult actors are way funnier and more entertaining to watch than the child actors. Entertainment value scores 9 out of 10. Characters and performances. The entire Shazam family all have great lines and share a good connection together. Zachary Levi is great, and like in the original, he overshadows Asher Angel, the younger Billy Batson, who plays a much reduced role in this instalment, which is probably for the better, as Levi is far more funny and entertaining. Angel has to play the occasional heavier moments, which he does well at, and Levi has all the fun. Grace Caroline Curry as Mary is a really pleasant character, who is a smart, kind older sister figure in the Shazamily. Jack Grazer, who I didn't like at all in the original Shazam, is actually very funny in Fury of the Gods. He has a great dynamic with the wizard, played by Jimon Honsu, who goes into full comedic mode this time round. The villains of the movie, the three sisters of Atlas, have a really good dynamic between them, with Helen Mirren at the top of the sibling hierarchy. She gives a Shakespearean performance that conflicts nicely with Billy Batson's childish naivety. Lucy Liu gives a solid performance as a middle sister, Kalypso, who chooses a violent route whenever she can, ultimately ending in her betraying her sister and becoming the sole baddie for the ending fight. She has some very stock fight phrases and does become a two-dimensional villain in the last 30 minutes of the film. Rachel Zegler as Anthea is really sweet, but her relationship with Freddy seems really forced, and I didn't buy into their relationship from the very start, so that aspect of the character didn't work well for me at all. Characters and performances score 8 out of 10. Visuals. The family's secret lair gets redecoed, and their costumes also get a nice upgrade, with their lightning bolt enlarged and the colours looking more grounded. The fantasy element of the film, with the three sisters, their dragon Laden, the Tree of Life, and the CGI monsters all look good. Rachel Zegler's costume is standout, and her power of Axis, which allows her to rotate the earth beneath her feet and move objects all around her, is visually pleasing. Visuals, 7 out of 10. Sound. The score for Fury of the Gods adopts a much more heroic orchestral feel than the original. Holding Out for a Hero by Bonnie Tyler plays at the start of the film, and it's really good. That song is timeless and still gets you pumped the same way it did all those years ago in Shrek 2. The soundtrack has a good blend of pop songs and grand superhero themes. They all worked well for me. Sound scores 8 out of 10. Ending. The big fight against Kalypso, whilst yes containing a dragon, a magical staff, lightning beams and a giant magic dome, still felt different and fresh enough to become more than a stock superhero CGI slogfest that Marvel and DC films normally revert to. I think the fact that the dome had been shrunk to just a Philadelphia stadium, which kept the fight choreography and geography interesting and easy to follow. As instead of smashing through buildings miles away, Kalypso and Billy's battle was contained in the stadium. Billy's death was quite emotional after his massive lightning bolt sacrifice. I'm not quite sure what happened to Kalypso. Perhaps I missed a split-second shot of her and Layden's body in the remains of the stadium. They died, I presume, but I either didn't see it or it wasn't apparent in the film. The final minutes where Wonder Woman appears and brings Billy back to life was a fun little cameo. There are 2 post-credit scenes. The first is where Amelia Harcourt and John Economos from the James Gunn Peacemaker series invite Shazam to join a Justice Society. The final end credit scene takes place after I'd say 5 to 6 minutes of end credits. It features Mastermind revisiting Dr. Sivana, the main villain from the original Shazam. He is still in his prison cell and now sports a large beard. Mastermind tells Dr. Sivana that he will return soon, to the frustration of Sivana, who's been waiting over 2 years for Mastermind's plan to break him out of prison. It's a funny meta way from the director to say yes, we tease this in the post-credit scenes in Shazam 1, and here we are teasing Mastermind and Dr. Sivana again in Shazam 2. Ending scores 8 out of 10. Rating. Shazam Fury of the Gods receives a rating of 78%. Film comparison. Shazam stands at joint 5th place on the film leaderboard, much higher than the original Shazam, which sits in 8th place, scoring 6% lower than Fury of the Gods. I now want to focus on some of the criticisms that I'm hearing from the early reviews and how I understand but fundamentally disagree with them. So the main criticisms I'm hearing is that Shazam 2 doesn't recapture the charm from the original film, as it mainly focuses on the older versions of the Shazam family, with the younger cast all except for Jack Glazer playing a much reduced role. Now to me, this was one of the main reasons why I liked Fury of the Gods more than the original. In Shazam 1, I found the younger cast, especially Asher Angel, to be cringy and embarrassing at times, and the acting from the child actors wasn't the best. So I think if you didn't particularly enjoy the children in the first film, then don't worry at all, as the older superhero versions are present for 80% of the film, and the child actors are certainly better taken in small doses. The next criticism I'm hearing is that the film is CGI heavy, especially in the final fight, and to this point I'm completely scratching my head, to be honest. I'm thinking, did the critics completely forget the 7 deadly sins who were present throughout Shazam 1? The 7 CGI sins certainly didn't mix well with the Shazamily in their fight scenes. It was all too obvious that they were fighting CGI models in the end battle of the original. In Fury of the Gods, the villains, Helen Mirren, Lucy Liu and Rachel Zegler, had really good interactions, and are certainly a step up from Dr. Sivana, the villain in the original. Layden, the dragon, was designed well, and as said before, the ending fight was contained in the stadium, so I don't share the view that it was a run-of-the-mill CGI slogfest. The criticism I do understand though, is that it was exposition heavy, which is certainly present in the middle section of the film. When the family are learning the history of the 3 sisters, there was a lot of exposition. But to this point, it wasn't like they had a long drawn out flashback scene. The family were all interacting and developing during this backstory explanation. It also set up a funny magical letter joke that I enjoyed. All I can say is that seeing the reviews before I went into the film, I expected Shazam 2 to be a bad movie, but on watching the film, I was pleasantly surprised. It was great, and I would recommend going to the cinema to watch it. Genre comparison. If we look across the action-adventure genre, Shazam Fury of the Gods sits in 3rd place. One of the best superhero movies I've watched in the last few years for sure. My rating of 78% is higher than the IMDB used rating of 6.9 out of 10, and the Rotten Tomatoes critic score is a splat at 55%, whereas the audience score is 81%, so perhaps there is still hope for this film yet. It's got stiff competition next week with the release of John Wick Chapter 4, which is receiving a lot of really good reviews from early screenings and reviewers. I'd very much like to see Shazam 2 doing well, and maybe like Aquaman, which received poor critical scores but went on to be the only DCEU film to make over $1 billion. I do hope Fury of the Gods can do well at the box office, despite the reviews. Anyway, what are your thoughts? Do you agree with the critics, or like me, did you find yourself thoroughly entertained? Next week, we will be reviewing John Wick Chapter 3 in preparation for John Wick Chapter 4, which we'll also be reviewing next week too. It's early days for the channel, so if you enjoyed this video, then subscribing to the channel and liking the video means a lot. Thank you, and see you again.